Hello, well I'm sorry I can't be with you at the hui for the Tukia group, but I do want to offer my encouragement to you. I've had an opportunity to meet a number of your members in the last 12 months or so, and it's a very exciting opportunity that your group represents. We're increasingly seeing Māori in control of significant assets, and that's been certainly the case with the Tukia group. They're at the primary force of a number of very important industries to New Zealand, and some exciting new technologies, whether it's in the area of geothermal development of ultimately primary industries like agriculture, forestry and aquaculture and the likes. So we see this as a great opportunity for you to work collaboratively to build the economic base for Māori in New Zealand and to make sure that we have a very vibrant Māori economy. So enjoy your meetings and your discussions, and I'll look forward to receiving feedback from you when I meet up with you next time.
The Tukia group and the assets that they represent collectively are exactly the types of investment opportunities that we want to be invited into the room and to join with.
I think they're successful because there is a commitment in both sides of those relationships to do the right thing. So it's guardianship of the taonga, which is the geothermal asset and the resource, but also it's about having aligned views and an aligned perspective that these are multi-generational decisions that are being made. So we feel very warmly about our relationships, particularly with the Tukia group, and we think there are benefits on both sides of those relationships.
Well, one of the things that interests us in Ngāti Awa is, although the Tukia model is a model based on commercial Western best practice, and that is we take the best of what's available in the commercial practice of the Western world, we also input into that the best of the cultural practice of the Māori world. And that's by way of their meeting protocols, the way they behave between themselves. But I think that then spreads to the benefits that derive from that, and the way that Tukia has gone around bringing the various components of Māori society together, I think is excellent. Around
13% of New Zealand's power generation now is fuelled by geothermal, and for Mighty River Power it's around 30% of our total generation. So increasingly it's becoming more and more important, and it is really the perfect fuel in that it is fully renewable.
The value set you find in Tukia is exactly the value set that we want to be part of. I use the phrase long-term investor. Everyone claims they're a long-term investor. Very few people are. In order to be able to think decades ahead, you have to have a very strong set of values about the people that you're investing for and your investment beliefs, what drives you, and you have to hang tough to those values. Tukia have clearly identified what's important to them. Those beliefs marry almost one-to-one with what's important to us as a New Zealand superannuation fund, and we're very disciplined about that. Where there are many, many thousands of investment opportunities, there are very few investment partners, and Tukia is a chosen investment partner with us.
Well, I think the forest is of national significance. It is the largest forest in New Zealand, so it takes a preeminent position in the forestry of New Zealand. Secondly, the carbon trading or the issues that come around that have to be nationally significant, as it is the largest forest, and therefore Tukia will be able to generate much more advantageous deals around the sale of those credits, and therefore the benefit that will come to the constituent area will be also great. In terms of geothermal, it's also a strategic asset, and they have enormous reserves below the forests and below the land that they now own. And so on all three fronts, forestry, NZ carbon units, and on geothermal, Tukia will hold a pretty important position, not only within the central North Island, but in the whole of the North Island, and indeed across the whole of New Zealand.
The diversification route that Tukia have selected is global best practice. You would expect to see that out of any type of endowment fund that you see around the world. I can think of the Harvard endowments, the Yale endowments, long-term intergenerational investors who have started with limited resource and put together over decades an incredibly robust series of businesses that in some way relate back to their original assets, certainly always relate to their competitive advantages. So where Tukia have started, I have no surprise. They've started in their own backyard, around assets and around asset classes that are very close to Māori, and particularly around the iwi that are represented in the Tukia group.
I think it's very important to have the scale, and obviously the way that the Tukia group are aggregating people underneath that umbrella means that there will be benefits for all. Geothermal investment is not for the faint-hearted. Obviously these are large-scale investments, but what we know is that Mighty River Power have developed a very unique competency in geothermal development, and working with Tukia so that the combination means that we are all aligned to the same objective at the end, means we've got the best chance of getting the best outcome.
The way that Tukia has gone around bringing the various components of Māori society together, I think is excellent, and we form part of that, even though we're not a partner in the CNI. We're a neighbour, but Tukia has reached out across the boundaries to us. I think the appointment of Pelanatu Sakalia was an excellent choice. His expertise, particularly around forestry, is undoubted. I think more importantly though that his knowledge of machinery of government and the Treasury and the way the New Zealand government operates is also very good. And thirdly, I think the relationships that he's established with a number of the people that work in that area is also excellent. A number of the people who were part of the negotiations, like Graham Pryor, Matt Tapo, are all people who play an important part in the development of Tukia and the benefits that will derive for the tribes of the Central North Island.
Māori groups and the group that Tukia represents are very long-term in their investment thinking. I hope their aspirations remain large, like obviously the Tukia group are at present, and we want to be part of that.
Well, it's very important for us with all our relationships with our partners that we understand their hopes and aspirations, and we're absolutely committed to Tukia having a voice in the decision making. And I think the journey that we've been on in the last year or so has reinforced the strength of that relationship, and it gives us great hope about what the potential is for that relationship with Tukia in the future.
We need to acknowledge the leadership of the Paramount Chief of Tūwharetoa, Te Ariki Nui, Situmu Te Heuheu. I think there is no doubt that without his calm overall guidance and direction, we would have probably got to a settlement, but we wouldn't have got to it as expeditiously. He forged a relationship with the Crown, and particularly the Deputy Prime Minister, that led the way for the work to be done by the chiefs and by the staff of the various parties. And I think one needs to acknowledge his presence and his guiding hand, which is still there today, which brings, I think, stability and certainty to what can at times be a very, very uncertain process.
Now, since we've adopted this new pathway forward, suffice to say that the journey was never an easy journey, but the iwi leaders persisted in exploring every avenue in order to find the appropriate way forward. I suppose one would say that it's been a privilege being in the presence of those leaders who willingly shared their own thoughts and sacred thoughts with the rest of the grouping. And that gave way to the process that was finally adopted to seek remedy in the way that we might allocate the resource that was before us. The Tukia group in the latter stages, as we know, took on a more positive role on behalf of the iwi. The work that they did was to explore the potential of the resource that we all shared. And of course today we have the benefit of their efforts and the culmination of a program and a project that will benefit not only the iwi, but the community and people at large of Aotearoa. We've not been, I don't believe, in a situation such as this, where we have a collective of organisations, of iwi, who will eventually benefit from the efforts that are being undertaken by iwi, but also by the work of Tukia. So the katoa has a lifespan where we won't know when it might end. Hopefully the idea, the concept of Tukia will continue at least for this generation and for the generations yet to come.